I must say that at the beginning, there was a bit of anxiety. Didn't know what really to expect. But Alhamdulillah, in my very first cabinet meeting, I felt very welcome, and they made me very comfortable, and the environment was conducive for you to speak, give views, and so on. So I think the way PM conducted the meeting is actually very conducive for people to add their views and so on. So that gave me the confidence to continue to contribute in that sense. But I would say that the last 3 years has been quite action-packed. I think we've been able to do quite a lot of things. Yeah, I think one thing which we must always learn is that we can never control the external environment. So what you can do is to enhance your resilience and focusing on improving your fundamentals. And that's exactly what we did. We continued to focus on the fundamentals. We continued to do the right things so that we'll be able to withstand the economic uncertainties, the external headwinds, so to speak. One of the things which I'm happy that we continued to pursue is our strategy of diversification. Now, this applies to not only the structure of the economy, but also in terms of our export markets and in terms of our sources of government revenue. So by diversifying, you are not over-dependent on any particular sector or any particular source. So that's made us more sustainable. So you know that on the structure of the economy, our reduced dependency on commodities now down to only 18%. When it comes to sources of government revenue, we reduce our dependency on revenue from oil and gas from 40% down to 21% last year. And as we move forward, we'll be continuing to decrease. And in terms of even export markets, so we always believe in not being too dependent on any particular market. So, for example, although we see that China is our single largest trading partner, but our exports to China is about 14%. Whereas in the case of, say, US and Japan, it's about 9.5% and so on. So it's quite balanced in a sense. So that has helped us to be more sustainable. I think, GST has always been on the cards for many, many years.
But the implementation side.
That's right. So even in 2009, we even had tabled it in Parliament, the bill, but it was actually subsequently withdrawn. I'm happy that the government had the courage to finally implement it. And in terms of timing, we all know that there's no time is a good time to introduce a new tax regime and so on. But I guess with the benefit of hindsight, we did the right thing. And it was also very timely because that was actually at a point when oil prices were coming down significantly. So that helped to cushion the impact of lower revenue coming from oil and gas. If we had not done GST, obviously our financial position would have been even worse. So that may have resulted in us cutting down some of our development expenditures. So we're talking about, building of rural roads, schools, hospitals, and so on. Well, if you go back to the new economic model, there are three components: high income, inclusiveness, and sustainability. Inclusiveness or inclusion refers to the need to make sure that no one will be left behind from the country's development. And that means that in terms of physical development, for example, we want to make sure that it is actually well spread. So not just concentrated on Klang Valley. So that's why we have created the various corridors. East Kandar Malaysia, the Northern Corridor, East Coast Economic Region, Sabah and Sarawak as well. So the other would be to make sure that we have enough emphasis on these other regions as well. But of course, the region that's close to existing infrastructure like Kali Air, for example, so they will benefit. So that's why we then said, okay, let's look at the expanding downwards the economic corridor and the creation of this Malaysian Vision Valley. So in many ways, it's actually it's an expansion of our current 5 corridors, but we felt that there is no necessity to create a new body per se. So this will be done within the current legislation and so on, so that it will be more effective that way. So again, the other will be a more balanced development that will make it sustainable for the future. We're not just talking about 2020, but beyond 2020. Well, I think one will have to look at your actual monthly income. Okay, if you look at if you are in the civil service, you will know that you've been getting the increments, and in fact, from 1st July, there's a double increment. And for sure, in terms, if you were to compute the increment in percentage terms, it's actually more than 5% if you're a civil service. Likewise, if you're someone from the private sector, if you've seen the announcement made by the Malaysian Employer Federation, they said that the average increment has been about 5.5%, 5.5 to 5.6%. In fact, for some sectors, it's even as high as 5.9%. So this is not our numbers, actually the MEF figures. And more recently, when we did the survey, the income survey, so again, it's consistent. So the increase is about 5 to 5.5%.
The EPU,
this is a statistics department. So, you know, you ask people, look at their paycheck, so they would be getting all this additional income. Now, that's on the income side. On the other side is actually on the expenditure side. If you were to maintain the same lifestyle and you stick to your proportion of spending, meaning that if typically the average household, this about 30% of the amount is actually spent on food and beverages, about 14% on transportation, and the rest on housing, utilities, and so on, about 22% and so on. So, all things being equal, if they maintain their spending pattern, they should have enough. Meaning that the increase in their income should be able to cover for the increase in the cost, because we measure the overall cost in the form of CPI, the Consumer Price Index. The most recent figure is 2.1%, so year-on-year increase. But of course, you start to break down the component. So food items increase much faster, but transportation is actually lower. People don't normally feel it, but what they feel is actually what they pay for the food, the fish, the meat, and so on. And I think, like any business, they will actually price it at the price which they think they can optimize their profit. Yeah. So it's all about supply and demand and the elasticity of demand. So I think, again, the choice is actually with the consumers. So we decide where we go to, what we eat, and so on.